Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report, powered by ENC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Today's show is going to be a little bit different because, yes, we're going to talk about the fact that Julius Malema was found guilty of hate speech in the last 24 hours. But another story that we're going to talk about is a really devastating one. I was shocked by the news yesterday to discover that the iconic, brilliant, world-class, renowned journalist Madia passed away after a short illness. She passed away in her early 40s when it felt like, although she'd done so much incredible work for our country through her passion and her brilliant skill as a journalist, a broadcaster, and an interviewer, that she left too soon. And we can mourn the misfortune of a, for me, bleaker, sadder, and less brilliant, vibrant, and brave South Africa without her. But we can also appreciate how much she gave to South Africa and how much her bravery and brilliance contributed to all of our lives, because her work was fundamentally country duty work. Her work interviewing, critiquing, and holding the powerful to account, and that viral moment which made her much more than just a journalist and a broadcaster to many people when she went across to the United States of America. That was her moment when she became, in Twitter parlance, the country's head girl. And that was the moment where people saw how incredible she was, absolutely schooling somebody else on their studio, on their own show, and putting them in their place and putting the truths about South Africa first. But that was just one moment of incredible brilliance from Madia. She had the ability to cuck out, honestly, don't believe that today, guys, cuck out politicians to their faces, ask them the most brutal and excellent and needed and brave questions, and get away with it. Get away with it in the sense that politicians would keep talking to her, would want to go back to her, would want to be interviewed by her again. And we are incredibly lucky that we have this unbelievable archive of her work. Just a few weeks ago, she was doing her podcast. She did that huge exclusive with Julius Malema, a man who notoriously barely speaks to anyone. I'm really cut up about Matshidiso's passing. Many journalists are, but also many just members of South African society and life who've come to appreciate her wit, her humor, her personality, her kindness, her brilliance. Every country in the world, every group of people, every community needs people like Matshidiso. Those who want to hold the powerful to account, those who want to find out the truth and fight for the truth, and those who are wildly, radically talented at doing that. And Matshidiso was wildly, radically talented at doing that. The outpouring of sadness from broadly all of us who work in news media and work in the business of talking about and finding out about South Africa publicly is an outpouring of sadness that one of our greatest, one of our best, a generationally extraordinary person and worker in this field has now left us, and too soon. And it's always too soon, but really, really in her early 40s, too soon. It's such a heartbreak on us and a tragedy for us as a community and as a country. We have all been so blessed and are all so lucky to have been alive at the time of Madia, to witness, appreciate, and radically, dramatically benefit from her work, her humanness, and her brilliance. I really hope that the incredible kind of work that you did will continue to be done by people like you, as talented, well-intentioned, good-hearted, and brilliant in South Africa, because we as a country need this. It's non-negotiable for the future of our country and of any healthy country. We need people like that doing work like that. This is the Quarter Report. I'm going to tell you what else is coming up on the show now. We're going to talk about Julius Malema and the finding of hate speech against him, because the ruling is quite interesting. It draws a very specific legal line in its interpretation of what hate speech is. So the Equality Court found that in October 2022, EFF leader Julius Malema committed hate speech. They made this decision yesterday. You may remember there was that big fight over Brackenfell High School in Cape Town, where online people claimed that Brackenfell High School in Cape Town was having some kind of matric dance that only white students were allowed to go to. And there were huge protests. The EFF rocked up at Brackenfell High School for a number of days in the end. It got covered by the national media and everything. But it turns out, and the South African Human Rights Commission later found, that it was actually, one, a private event, but two, it was open to all pupils, even pupils from other schools. So it just was not, one, a matric dance from the school, created by, associated with the school. Two, it was not whites only. And yet that whole huge explosion happened. But then, a little while later, at an EFF rally, Julius Malema was speaking on this and speaking on some specific people. Because when this happened in November 2020, around the protest, there were protesters and parents and residents and security guards, and they actually came to blows. The police had to stop them from beating the hell out of each other. So Malema told supporters at an EFF rally in 2022, quote, "Tell that white man to try me. I'll come many times here in the Western Cape, appearing in a court case, because no white man is going to beat me up and then I call myself a revolutionary the following day. You must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act." Now, Malema clearly did not say that he was going to kill that specific white man. But I think to most reasonable people, that would sound like, or at least, even if Malema didn't intend it, that could incite violence. Just within reason, somebody's incredibly powerful, incredibly authoritative, at a rally, surrounded by all of their supporters, getting themselves involved in this very, very specific case that references a specific individual and then says, killing is a revolutionary act, we must not be scared to kill. The court found that this had the potential to foment racial violence on a large scale. The direct quote from the ruling is, "To call someone a racist in South Africa is, given our racially oppressive past, inevitably to invoke detestation, enmity, ill will, and malevolence against such person. Whilst calling out someone who behaves as a racist may be acceptable, calling for them to be killed is not." So that's the line that the court has drawn, that you can call someone a racist. It's not about calling somebody a racist. And you can call someone a racist even though calling someone a racist will invoke detestation, people to detest them, enmity, which means bad feelings, ill will, we know, and malevolence, as in anger and negative feelings towards that person. It is acceptable to do that, particularly given our racially oppressive past and our present. But whilst calling out someone who behaves as a racist might be acceptable, calling for them to be killed is not. It's a super interesting ruling and an unusual one for its kind. Malema, of course, has most famously sung Kill the Boer as an act of political expression, and has consistently been found by courts to that is fine, that it is okay to sing that song because it's a historic struggle song, and it has a different meaning, and it's not instructive, and it's not experienced as instructive or as an order to go and do something. But in this case, in a different kind of situation, talking about being ready to kill for the revolution and not being scared to kill in the context of talking about a specific white man who he sets himself up in opposition to is deemed as something else. And I'd love to know what you think of this on the WhatsApp line. The number is 0607-613-436. It's a really, really important case that will have far-reaching consequences for other cases like this across South Africa in times to come. But it is worth quickly speculating on how Malema is going to respond to this, because they're trying to pursue damages. They don't just want the ruling. They want him to pay damages, finances, around 500,000 rand, some are calling for. And that is a different level of punishment, much like an apology, because you aren't just found guilty and then can say, well, screw the court. You have to then actually go and do something. You've got to commit an act. And it's interesting because of how Malema is going to play this, because he could spin this as the courts are against me. I am the martyr. I was standing up. And I was shouting down, in his view, an abhorrent and awful white man who's the embodiment of current and continuing racism and privilege in South Africa on behalf of Black South Africans who are largely still downtrodden, undermined, oppressed by a capitalist archetype state and a failing government, and continuing racism in society. He can sell that, and that could be a rallying cry for him. It could certainly be the next thing that he uses to be relevant, because remember, since the fallout with the EFF leadership last year, he has struggled to be relevant, and now Trump isn't talking about South Africa. Malema's not getting a whole lot of TV time. He's struggling to get relevance and attention from the country, which is what he needs to do to reset the kind of reputation of the economic freedom fighters, make them seem relevant and important again before the local government elections coming next year. So I reckon he will be able to twist and spin this to his favor, but I wonder if this conviction will hang over him now. I wonder if even for potential voters for the EFF, they'll go, wow, he was convicted of hate speech for saying something that could incite serious violence or at least violent activity based on race. What do you think, Eric? Do you think it will be for his favor or not?
It's interesting because based on like the way the courts have spoken about and denied that, like Kill the Boer was a hate speech moment or anything like that, it's interesting that it just happens to be this phrasing where there is almost like a specific person in mind in the sentence prior to it. Because if you read them out of context and you almost take those and you almost like just add a paragraph gap between those two things, it's equally as theoretical, right? About like what a revolution is.
Yeah.
And so like it's fascinating that they've decided just because of the proximity of those two things, it is now classified as hate speech.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally, especially because essentially what Malema said could be broadly understood to be exactly what the song says, but the song is seen as an historic artifact that nobody understands as a modern instruction. Whereas Malema saying that at a rally now can be experienced as a modern instruction for this time.
And especially in the proximity of a specific person. I mean, if we think now back to Open Chats podcast and all these things that have happened on social media recently, one of the big things that I felt like was their defense was they weren't attacking a specific person.
Gates McKenzie was the same.
Exactly. And so now you have this proximity of a specific person and that statement, and that changes everything.
But Malema would say, oh, but that's the next sentence. I was talking about killing abstractly for the revolution, but of course, the fact that it follows the sentence before about a specific white man and him saying he'll fly to the Western Cape to have this confrontation as many times as he needs to. We are such English literature grads.
It was funny because when you first read it out loud, I thought to myself that the sentence structure was different to how it was actually written or said originally, and it almost sounded like it was a new paragraph, and he was saying that like the act of killing the revolution is a revolutionary act. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, there's definitely a comma or a semicolon in there somewhere.
Right. We basically just did a close reading.
A little bit, yeah. Semi-close.
Okay. Let us know what you think about all of this. As I said, the number is 0607613436. It's a big ruling as part of so many things going on at the same time in South Africa at the moment. We'll be back tomorrow for the final episode of the week.